Conan O'Brien is unlike any other late-night television host, giving his guests freedom when they're on the show to express themselves in any ways that they want. Because of this, one, he's not making too many friends, and two, these celebrities are exposing themselves of many different things that we're going to get into within this video, and these things will forever be on the internet, and these celebrities can never escape them. Thank you guys for subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on my next upload tomorrow. Now let's dive into all the details.
For over 30 years, Conan O'Brien has been doing something different from every other late night host. While some fake laugh and others preach about how amazing their guests are at everything, Conan just lets things happen. His loose improvisational style creates space for guests to just be themselves. And when they turn out to be drunk, delusional, or catastrophically arrogant, it's on the internet forever. And the best part is that Conan knows exactly what he's doing. When he launched his podcast in 2018, the description said, quote, "After 25 years at the late night desk, Conan realized that the only people at his holiday party are the men and women who work for him. Over the years, and despite thousands of interviews, Conan has never made a real and lasting friendship with any of his celebrity guests. Sure, it's tongue-in-cheek with his trademark self-deprecation written all over it, but it confirms something he's been showing and telling for decades. The celebrity world is just a performance, and he's been documenting that performance through every compromised guest who's walked onto his set."
And we've been actually documenting all of that here as well, really leaning into the terrible things that go on within Hollywood. We call it evil Hollywood. You could call it Epstein files or call it what you will. Celebrities live and beat to a different drum, and that drum is often extremely corrupt, and that's what we're always talking about and exposing here on the channel. You're going to want to see what celebrities expose themselves, putting themselves in the limelight in a negative way, all shown in the video.
With some exposing more about themselves and the system they exist in than others. Years later, he'd finally put words to what he'd been doing all along, but back then, he just kept letting the camera roll. In the late 90s, Richard Branson, the billionaire founder of the Virgin Group, appeared on Late Night with actress Salma Hayek. It made for an interaction that really aged like milk. Branson keeps touching Salma on the couch, persistently enough that Conan has to tell him to stop on air.
He's English too.
He's English. What's his name? Where does he live?
Does this work for you? Does this work for you wherever you go?
When Conan says only a billionaire could grab Salma Hayek, he's only half joking, and later starts to look a lot more serious about the awkwardly entitled experience unfolding in front of him.
Think about normal people, like me, like you. If we were to do this in the workplace, sexual harassment would be called right off the bat. You'd be in the PR office, and you'd potentially be losing your job, at least be getting written up. But here on TV, because you're a billionaire, you're able to get away with these things.
You touch her one more time, I'll rip your head off, pal. I don't care how much money you have.
Branson goes on to talk about scouting model Kate Moss, who was so young at the time that his team had to speak to her parents. He also talks about things like Pamela Anderson-shaped Virgin cola bottles and legitimizing the Mile High Club by putting double beds on airplanes. Then he slaps close to Conan's face after saying he'd throw Salma Hayek out of his hot air balloon. On Reddit, reactions years later, viewers describe Branson testing Hayek on live TV, and how his behaviors were creepy, over the top, and out of touch with the audience. This moment exposes how elites view the rest of us. Branson wasn't worried about consequences because in his world, there aren't any. When you're rich enough, powerful enough, the normal rules just don't apply. This is the narcissism baked into a celebrity culture where Conan occupies a middle ground. He's successful enough to be in the room with these people, but he came up through comedy writing, not the traditional Hollywood show business route. He sees both worlds, the elite performance and the uncomfortable reality underneath it. And you probably won't be surprised that Branson has featured prolifically in some of the recent Epstein images, going to show just how out of touch most billionaires truly are to the wider public.
I think the biggest thing here that's worth noting from that segment is that when you are part of these clubs, when you're in the millionaire, billionaire group, you don't have to follow the same rules and laws that normal people have to follow, because you can buy your way out of everything, or you already own everything, so there's no getting in trouble. Until all the Epstein files are released and then everyone goes to jail, but that's still yet to happen.
And you can see how good Conan is at playing along while simultaneously subtly criticizing, an art form that runs through his work even when late night moments descend into complete chaos. There's this great 30 Rock episode where Tracy Jordan shows up at Conan's show acting erratically, seemingly trying to stab Conan with a knife, creating this awkward comedy moment. This was actually parodying real-life talk show moments that went totally off the rails in a manner not too dissimilar to the sketch. In the mid-2000s, someone acted so out of turn on Conan that they were banned from the show. This is actor Dax Shepard, who, within seconds of walking on stage, fell backward over Conan's chair and crashed through a side table, smashing the furniture.
You're paying for that table. I'm gonna shake it.
He shows up convinced he's going to crush it. Instead, he laughs at his own jokes, takes endless pauses, rambles, and never quite lands a coherent thought. When Dax and Conan discussed it years later, Dax admitted it was the only thing he did to wreck his career and that he was banned until he got sober. It's nothing deep, but it did turn out to be a classic late night moment that capped off the 90s and early 2000s talk show era, when the handbrakes were off and the celebrity lifestyle was publicly out of control. An even more notorious incident involved Kari Wuher following comedian Stephen Wright on late night. Wright is a deadpan, dry comedian. Kari is something else entirely. Within 90 seconds, she's insulted Steve Wright to his face.
We talked about this before. He knows I just can't stand him. Are you retiring?
Excuse me?
I'm kidding.
Ooh,
I love
awkward.
him. No, really, I do.
Wright looks genuinely offended, and Conan's face really says it all. He definitely starts to lose his patience while he salvages anything worthwhile for the audience to see.
This is something also, when you have a show and you let the show run itself, like Conan lets his show run itself. He lets the celebrities kind of go off on their little bit of tangents because they put a show on themselves based off of some of their erratic behavior like we're seeing happen right here. But it could lead to some very awkward moments on the show and even some people getting pretty upset.
You have like 8 personalities, don't you?
I'm psychotic.
Yeah, you hated him, you wanted him to retire, and he excited you backstage.
It gets weirder. She flirts obnoxiously and badly with Conan, randomly shouts Baton Rouge for no reason.
As Alex Trebek was talking to me, I kept hearing Marsha go, Baton Rouge, Baton Rouge. I was terrified.
I'm terrified now. So you're on acid right now.
Yeah.
Throughout the interview, whenever Conan gets a laugh, Carrie turns sour and glares at him like she resents any laugh that isn't about her. Here's someone, like many in Hollywood, who can't exist unless they're the most fascinating person in the room, with a desperate need to dominate every second. Watch her face when the audience laughs at Conan's jokes instead of hers. That glare of resentment, it's someone who cannot tolerate not being the main character for even 5 seconds. This is what elite celebrity culture produces. People so detached from normal human interaction that a late night interview becomes about validation. You can see how Conan is doing everything he can to save it, and manages to make it funny rather than a total car crash for all involved, especially given that his career is on the line in these kinds of moments. But that still isn't what he considers his worst talk show experience. There's this one appearance that Conan himself has consistently named his absolutely worst guest.
Who's this guest going to be? And also, I'm sitting here wondering how many of the guests that we're seeing on the Conan show are actually going to be people that we now know are associated and affiliated with the Epstein files. We should keep a tally.
Over 25 years, and he's never changed his answer. Legendary director Abel Ferrara is scheduled for late night. Before his segment begins, he flees the set, gets into the elevator, and runs out onto the street. Producer Frank Smiley chases him through Manhattan streets and physically drags him back to the building.
I was in charge of him, and he fled during the show before his segment. He ran away, got on the elevator, and was out on the street running away, and Frank gave chase.
Then Abel comes on camera, essentially against his will at this point, and it gets so much worse. He's slumped waving an unlit cigarette, mumbling, avoiding eye contact with Conan and Andy. At one point he just starts yelling at Conan. It's so incomprehensible that Conan jokes viewers would need subtitles.
You thought that was a pleasant sound, a chainsaw?
It was a pleasant sound.
Okay.
At a local drive-in.
All right.
We grew up at a drive-in theater.
Okay. Good deal.
He's not sober.
We're gonna get those Stallone subtitles in here right away.
William Dafoe referenced this years later.
I always remember your interview with my good friend Abel Ferrara. That's a classic.
Oh my God, great director. Do you remember this when he was in the 1990s?
Yeah.
And he was so great, but eccentric, fair to say?
You did that.
Yeah, he did that. He did exactly that. You can look it up online.
Other hosts would have scrapped this segment, protected his image, and maintained the illusion that everyone's professional. Conan, however, aired it, making for a ridiculous but timeless piece of television. Obviously, it's just a different era, but the fact that extremely drunk or inebriated guests were a regular fixture on late-night TV tells you just how fake and curated it's become today. It's the reason it's dying today. It's the opposite of what it used to be.
Conan used to make it truth. You would see what the truth was for the upper elite Hollywood. But nowadays it's being more and more censored because the truth is actually quite ugly and spills quite a few secrets that the industry does not want to get out. Let's get into some of those secrets.
Dominated by carefully scripted Instagram and TikTok friendly content. Conan's carpool karaoke is just the perfect example. It's known as TV's biggest con for its grueling fake formula. Some footage proves that Conan isn't even driving. This sanitization is exactly why podcasts like the Joe Rogan Experience exploded. People were starving for something real, even if real meant messy, drunk, high, or chaotic. Rogan built an empire on unscripted conversations where guests could get stoned and actually just be themselves. Network television had become so controlled, so desperate to avoid offense that it stopped being interesting. The authenticity Conan had been practicing for decades became the entire business model of modern podcasting. Except by then, late night TV had completely abandoned it. But Conan's willingness to let guests be themselves and his resistance to network censorship has occasionally backfired. There was a point when his career might not have taken off at all. Back in the 90s, NBC had an executive named Don Olmier, who was personal friends with O.J. Simpson. Norm Macdonald was hosting Weekend Update on SNL and kept making jokes calling Simpson a murderer.
And the Pope came out with a book this week, which contains a series of essays examining faith and morality in today's secular world and the changing role of the Catholic Church as it approaches the 21st century. The book is entitled, God Himself Told Me That O.J. is Guilty.
So Don fired Norm from SNL, then told Conan not to stop booking him on late night. So an executive was using his power to censor a comedian because his celebrity friend didn't like the jokes. Conan then wrote back saying, "You hired me to do the best show and Norm's my best guest." So Don's response was, quote, "I expected better from you," really meaning that he expected obedience. The NBC executive trying to ban Norm Macdonald was the system working exactly as we all expected to, by protecting its own image while smothering people's right to criticize. And here's the thing, most people in Conan's position would have folded. You don't rise to hosting The Tonight Show by making enemies of network executives. But Conan's career had developed in a different world before he hit the mainstream. He had spent years in the writer's room at Saturday Night Live and The Simpsons, where being funny was the point, not making executives happy. So he just refused and essentially ignored the instructions coming from above him. Normally that doesn't end well for people in the industry. Conan kept booking Norm anyway on at least 25 more occasions. Wow. Fast forward, and NBC promised Conan he'd take over The Tonight Show when Jay Leno retired. After 7 months of waiting around for that to finally happen, they tried to move Conan to the 12:05 AM so Leno could come back at 11:35, meaning this wouldn't even be The Tonight Show at all. He eventually unleashed criticism of the whole fallacy and left publicly saying, quote, "I cannot participate in what I honestly believe is The Tonight Show's destruction." This is where the idealism dies. Conan had finally reached the pinnacle, being The Tonight Show desk. Then they tried to give it back to Jay Leno. The promise meant nothing. The contracts meant nothing. It was all just business. He wasn't just talking about a time slot, but about what the show was supposed to represent.
And honestly, this is all business, but what I do like about Conan is that he is trying to show the truth. He's trying to do less censorship than, well, of course, than what we're used to today on late night television. But for the time, it was something that was a little bit risky. He was kind of a loose cannon, meaning he was going to do what he wanted to do. And surprisingly, he was able to maintain that position for so long.
Meaningful comedy for the public good. And you have to wonder whether this was the experience that made him realize that, to the executives, it was never about maintaining the meaningful product of late night comedy. It was just another asset to squeeze every last drop out of before disposing of the formula and moving on. It would take him decades to articulate why this mattered, but the principle was already there. Conan spent his final nights on The Tonight Show roasting NBC and Jay Leno with over-the-top comedy bits self.
Let's be honest here, it is not an easy job to be able to maintain composure, to be able to be funny, and to keep a show on the rails, especially when you're giving this much freedom to the guests that are going on the show, when you're not having the support of production as well. We have to give Conan some credit there. Now, we've said that he hasn't made any friends, and it's a lot of because he would kind of feed into what celebrities were making when they were making a fool of themselves. Maybe he wasn't trusted in the industry because many people would think that he would take any instances where celebrities would put themselves in a negative looking situation and make a joke of it or make it some type of publicized. Either way, it's not an easy job what he had to do, and he did it fairly well.
He elaborated on this philosophy at Oxford Union in January 2026, talking about how modern comedians have lost their way.
Some comics go the route of, I'm going to just say F Trump all the time, or that's their comedy. And I think, well, now a little bit you're being co-opted because you're so angry. You've been lulled. It's like a siren leading you into the rocks. You've been lulled into just saying F Trump, F Trump, F Trump, screw this guy, you know, and I think you've now put down your best weapon, which is being funny, and you've exchanged it for anger.
Controversy gets views and engagement, but it's a race to the bottom. Comedy becomes about making half your audience cheer while the other half seethes. You're just picking sides in a culture war. He says how comedy is vital for social and political critique and discourse, but that it's a tougher and tougher balance to strike when everyone's trying to vilify others or portray their attitudes as superior or holier than thou.
If you're a comedian, you always need to be funny. You just have to find a way. And you just have to find a way to channel that anger into a way that is, because good art will always be a great weapon, will always be a perfect weapon against power. But if you're just screaming and you're just angry, you've lost your best tool in the toolbox.
Conan has platformed many politicians from all sides of the political spectrum over the years, so he's not making a political affiliation here. Despite calling himself a moderate Democrat, his writers said that while some want to convince everyone of their political points of view, Conan just likes silly stuff that makes people laugh.
And I think that's really important as a host of a late night show. As a person leading a YouTube video like myself, obviously, many different people are deep into politics and go either left or right with the way that they choose. And obviously, that's segmenting the audience by 50% because only half of the people are going to agree with you no matter which way you go. I think it's important to give a broad bird's eye view of all sides of things going on, which is what I try to do here on the channel. I don't want to lean left. I don't want to lean right. I want everyone to be able to see and make up their minds for themselves. And those discussions happen in the comments section, which I try to dive into and interact with a lot of those comments as well. So actually, thank you guys for going down there and being active.
That doesn't mean resorting to apathy though. Not long before Kimmel's show was taken down for his comments on Charlie Kirk, Conan had tweeted, quote, "The suspension of Jimmy Kimmel and the promise to silence other late night hosts for criticizing the administration should disturb everyone on the right, left, and center. It's wrong, and anyone with a conscience knows it's wrong. The point is to use thoughtful intelligence to expose what's happening rather than just protecting everyone or getting righteously upset." This came through when Jennifer Garner tried to school him on grammar. During conversation, Conan casually uses the word snuck. Garner famously interrupts with a condescending smile. His face showed a mix of shame and rage, but the interview continues and he doesn't attack her. He doesn't even get angry, but just waits. Later, Conan reaches under his desk and pulls out a dictionary.
But there's a time when you snuck into the room to see what the...
I sneaked into the room. Snuck isn't a word, Conan, and you went to Harvard and you should know that.
There's a... Oh, I'm sorry, wait, there's a... I keep a dictionary down here and I just found it. Just want to look at... Oh, what the hell? Look right here. Snuck, past and past part of sneak.
Oh. Okay, so he actually flipped the script on her. She made him look like a fool, saying that snuck wasn't a word when in fact it was and is in the dictionary. And he threw it back in her face. I actually think that was a nice comeback, but they are now not friends.
I mean, it's obvious when you think about it. Who hasn't heard the word snuck out before? The audience erupts and Garner's face goes red. She throws her hands up and Conan stands up with a dictionary. He didn't get angry, but he also didn't protect her from embarrassment. The entitled attitude of all these Hollywood elites almost definitely wears on you after a few years of dealing with these people. It's probably why Jennifer Garner never appeared on Late Night with Conan O'Brien again, but did appear on a show over 10 years later. The podcast era has been one of the most telling for Conan. He launched his podcast Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend in 2018.
I actually love the Conan O'Brien podcast. I should say I love the concept behind it because now it's him. It's a much smaller network, much smaller production. He could actually do the things kind of like on other podcasts where people can just say what they want, like the Joe Rogan show. He could come out here and have those discussions that he's always wanted to have, but now in a different form.
After seeing the rise of people like Joe Rogan, as this long-form format gives more opportunity to explore complex and personal topics, without all the manufactured fakeness of late-night shows. Late-night comedy was dying, having stopped being about genuine situations unfolding in front of the public, and instead being dominated by 7-minute promotional hits between commercial breaks. Big-name podcasts hit it off as they avoided FCC regulation and network disputes. Conan described the exact issue with today's modern, fake late-night talk shows in an interview with TechCrunch.
When I'm doing the traditional talk show, I'm limited. You have to take, for years and years and years, when it was just on network television, I had to take 6 and 7 minute turns, which means I'm having a conversation with you, or I'm having a conversation with someone I've always dreamed of talking to, whether it's a Tom Hanks or a Jim Carrey or, a Robin Williams. And then when I see that after 6 minutes or 7 minutes, there needs to be a laugh, and then I have to say, we'll take a break and we'll get right back. And then there's a band plays, and 3 minutes later we come back and I pick it up. That is not a natural conversational flow. And so, to be honest, what you can do in a podcast is really incredible. I can talk to someone for an hour. I can talk to them for an hour and 15 minutes, try and trim them back, but for the most part, people let their guard down.
Like the videos we've made on the Joe Rogan Experience, podcasts give celebrities more opportunity to expose what lies below their image, and often without even realizing it. And while there's definitely a whole lot of wholesome content on there, that is what started happening too on the Conan Needs a Friend podcast. And oftentimes you just realize how narcissistic and awful many of these celebrities truly are. Like when fans called Chris Martin from Coldplay, quote, pretentious and insulting to Conan. He often failed to laugh at Conan's jokes, and Chris really made Conan show his work as an interviewer, and you could hear Conan constantly pivoting, just to somehow keep this conversation flowing. Or like when Rahm Emanuel, the former Chicago mayor, became known as bar none the worst guest, known as, quote, a legendary Tiffany Haddish, who came on the podcast after jokingly defending Bill Cosby, was also received as widely out of touch compared to her usual publicized self. Even James Corden appeared on Conan's podcast, and fans called it an instant skip.
Because when you're on a podcast or when you're doing a live event, like a live stream here on YouTube, you are raw. There is no production before it goes out. Now, on a podcast, of course, things can be cleaned up and cut. Live events, not so much. But you're getting to see what these people are actually like. Anyone that is on television as an actor, actress, talk show host, everything goes through post-production. Anything that you don't want or that Hollywood doesn't want people to see gets cleaned up, and they manipulate it through editing to make things look the way that they want them to look. But when you're on a podcast like the one we're talking about right now, or doing a live event or live stream, you are there as you. Raw. People are seeing you for who you actually are, and that is more the actual truth.
Which makes sense when you know how Corden actually operates. He personifies the default stance of talk show culture, a platform to sell films, books, ideas, and whatever else Hollywood is pushing, all in exchange for an appearance. During a segment with Jimmy Kimmel, Corden was asked to name 2 cameramen on his show. He obviously couldn't, and embarrassingly tried to claim it was a different crew that night, but the reaction from everyone made it obvious. He wouldn't have ever known anyone's names anyway. Then, during the 2019 writer's strike, he went on to the WGA meeting without his writers and tried to advocate for a program that would let his show pay writers less than the guild's minimum, all to push a narrative for the elites of the networks. He claimed he just wanted to give young writers opportunities, but nobody was buying this. Then there was the infamous restaurant incident, when the owner of a fancy French restaurant described him as a tiny cretin of a man, after called and screamed at servers about a hair in his food and his wife's egg yolk omelette having a bit of egg white. When one of Conan's writers heard about this, they announced publicly that when Conan witnessed a staff member being rude to a server at a restaurant, Conan fired them. Ellen's also cut from the same cloth as Corden, building her entire show on be kind. She dances, she says the mainstream narrative, she's nice to everyone, she has the correct political views of the elites, and everything just feels warm and fuzzy. But then in July 2020, the image completely fell apart, when BuzzFeed spoke with 36 current and former employees about what was really happening behind the scenes, where staff described a workplace dominated by fear with allegations of racism, intimidation, and harassment. One former employee worked there for nearly a year, then took medical leave for a month to check into a mental health facility for a shot at passing her own life attempt. The week they returned to work, they were told their position was being eliminated. Another employee was given a warning for creating a GoFundMe campaign to raise money for medical costs not covered by company health insurance. Just 24 hours after posting it, they were called into the department head's office and told to take it down because of concerns it might hurt Ellen's image. Jimmy Fallon hasn't escaped this either. Rolling Stone in 2023 published an expose based on interviews with 2 current and 14 former employees. One said that people wouldn't joke around in the office and they wouldn't stand around and talk to each other when Jimmy was in a bad mood. The show literally had 9 showrunners in 9 years, which is significantly more turnover than other late night shows. It was so bad that they would refer to their guests' dressing rooms as crying rooms because that's where they could go to let out their emotions when upset with their alleged mistreatment. While Conan has said he deeply respects him, Stephen Colbert has also repeatedly revealed his mindset as the polar opposite of Conan's. People who work close to him describe an arrogance oozing out of his pores with his gatekeeper-type role in the industry.
These guys are elitists, and Colbert's an elitist, and also it's why they don't know what they sound like when they talk, because they don't realize they haven't been in that world for a long time.
The talk show brand depends on maintaining a facade that invites the public to believe they are seeing the real person behind the work.
That was planned right there, that spitting out of the liquid, you could totally see it. And something that's coming to mind right now is when anyone in Hollywood becomes one of the elite, they become rich, they become famous, it becomes very difficult for them to stay humble. To look at the common man and say, we are the same. I just happen to be a bit more successful financially and I have more people that know me, so that's why I'm considered a celebrity, but we're still on the same field. Most people that reach that level of financial success, whether it be in business, whether it be in fame, they have a hard time remaining humble. And when you do see actors, actresses, people with a lot of money that do remain humble, you have to show that quite a bit of respect because it's not the norm.
A privilege the elite have guarded carefully, but now this is a dying industry, late night is dead, and everyone can see through these frauds. However, Conan treated his job differently, with his staff becoming his true friends. During writers' strikes, he's paid their salaries out of pocket. When he left NBC for TBS after the Tonight Show debacle, he negotiated a $45 million deal and ensured $12 million was distributed among his staff. Then he took his entire crew with him. When John Krasinski appeared on Larry King, he talked about interning for Conan in college.
People have asked me before, what's your biggest influence comedically? And I said, without a doubt, it's Conan O'Brien.
For 30 years, he's been operating differently and still tries to today. His loose style lets people be themselves, and when themselves is drunk, delusional, arrogant, or tone deaf, everyone sees it, which is a subtle yet powerful anti-establishment critique. You see it in moments where he's been criticizing the modern media and film industry, like on this podcast with Ryan Reynolds, when he revealed his Hollywood pet peeve.
I've been saying this for years. I refuse to see a movie. At a certain point I declared I will not see a movie that has a portal.
He elaborated that too many blockbusters rely on the same lazy third act device. He called it a sign that the creators had no idea how to end the story. The portal represents Hollywood's formulaic nature, a formula that now percolates late night TV, where it no longer unfolds as its real natural self. He's fought that system when it mattered, but used wit and intelligence instead of getting angry or resorting to polarization tactics. It's an old school model that barely holds up today, but still allows the industry and its players to expose itself. In an era that favors clicks and controversy over craft and meaning, comedy that just interrogates treats people as people is becoming rarer, and that's really bad news for everyone.
I have to say that I like Conan's approach. I like that he allows the truth to be shown, and I like that he doesn't go and save his guests when they're putting themselves into a situation which is showing truth. There were many different names revealed inside of this video, and I'm sure some of them have surprised you. If there are ever any names that you want me to dive deeper into on the channel, leave them in the comments below and I could consider them for a future video. And we went in depth about Joe Rogan and who he exposed on his podcast in this video. Why don't you click on that and I'll see you over there.